The plains stretched wide and empty, a sea of dry grass swaying in the merciless wind, and somewhere in the middle of it all stood a crooked ranch house, lonely as a tombstone. Inside, Jacob Harlan sat at his worn kitchen table, fingers tapping against the wood, eyes fixed on the dust motes swirling in a shaft of sunlight. 15 years. 15 years since he'd touched a woman, 15 years since his young wife, Clara, had died birthing a child that never drew breath. He'd buried them both on the same day and hardened himself like old leather ever since. Jacob had grown used to silence, used to the creak of the floorboards, the moan of the wind, the steady breath of cattle in the far pasture. He didn't drink much, didn't gamble, didn't ride into town unless supplies forced him to. People whispered that Jacob was half ghost already, more shadow than man. But on a blistering summer afternoon, when even the cicadas seemed too weary to sing, something arrived that would turn his life inside out. The stagecoach rumbled down the dirt road, kicking up a storm of dust. Jacob squinted from the porch, puzzled. No one ever came out this far unless they had reason. He stepped off the boards, boots crunching gravel, and watched as the coach slowed to a stop in front of his gate. The driver hopped down, muttered something, then pulled open the door. And out stepped a woman. Her dress was travel-stained, her bonnet tilted awkwardly over loose strands of chestnut hair. She carried a small carpet bag and blinked into the light like she'd just been yanked out of a dream. When her eyes met Jacob's, wide and uncertain, he felt something in his chest stir for the first time in years. "Mr. Harland," she asked softly, voice trembling. He frowned. "That's me. Then I'm your bride." The words hit like a gunshot. Jacob almost laughed, but the sound stuck in his throat. Bride. He hadn't ordered no bride. The woman flushed as if expecting joy and found only coldness instead. "There must be some mistake," Jacob muttered, looking at the driver. The man spat into the dirt. "All I know's what they told me in town. Said this here lady was headed for Harland Ranch. Dropped her like I was paid to do. My job's done." Without another word, he swung up onto the seat, cracked the reins, and left them both choking in dust. The woman clutched her carpetbag tighter. "Please, don't send me away. I came all this way. My name is Evelyn Price." "The agency said." Jacob held up a hand. "Agency? Listen, ma'am, I never sent for you. Must be some mix-up. You'd best head back to town and straighten it out." Her face crumpled, but she stood her ground. "I can't. I sold everything I had for this chance. I thought you wanted me." Her voice cracked on the last word, and she lowered her gaze. Jacob felt the old ache stir again, the one he'd buried deep with Clara. He could send her away, keep his solitude, guard the walls around his heart. But as the hot wind tugged at her dress and her small shoulders shook, something inside him whispered he couldn't do it. "Not this time. Come inside," he said finally, gruffly. "At least till we figure this out." The ranch house wasn't much to look at, just 4 rooms and a roof that leaked when it rained, but Evelyn smiled faintly as though it were a palace. She set her bag down by the door, smoothed her skirt, and thanked him with a whisper. That night, Jacob lay awake listening to the sound of another soul breathing in the next room. 15 years he'd slept alone, and now every creak of the floor, every soft sigh cut through his armor like a knife. By morning, he thought she'd be gone, but Evelyn stayed. She rolled up her sleeves and cooked breakfast, humming a tune he half remembered from long ago. She swept the floor, fed the chickens, and when the pump handle jammed, she fought it with both hands until water gushed free. "You don't have to do all that," Jacob muttered. She glanced at him, a spark in her eyes. "If I'm to be sent away, at least let me be useful while I'm here." Days turned to weeks, and still she didn't leave. Jacob wrote a letter to the so-called agency, demanding answers, but no reply came. The stagecoach didn't return either. Out here, the world had a way of forgetting people, and so Evelyn became part of the ranch. But the loneliness in Jacob only deepened. He'd catch himself staring when she bent to gather eggs or brushed hair from her face. He'd imagine what her skin might feel like beneath his calloused hands. Then guilt would slam into him like a hammer. He wasn't meant for this anymore. He'd buried that part of himself long ago. One evening, after a long day repairing fence, he found her sitting on the porch, knees drawn up, watching the sun sink red into the horizon. Her eyes were shining wet. "What's wrong?" he asked, voice rougher than he meant. She shook her head, but tears slid down her cheeks. I keep thinking I'll wake up and be back in that miserable boarding house in Kansas. I was nothing there, Mr. Harland, nothing. I thought, maybe out here, I could be someone's wife. Maybe even be loved. Jacob froze, the words striking him like a whip. He sat down beside her, staring at the dying sun. Evelyn, he whispered, you don't know what you're asking. I ain't touched a woman in 15 years. I don't remember how anymore. Her gaze turned on him, fierce through her tears. Then learn again, with me. It was like a door breaking open in the dark. The first time he kissed her, it was clumsy and desperate, as if hunger had built for years and could no longer be denied. She trembled against him, then melted, and Jacob thought his heart might tear apart from the force of it. Nights became different after that. The walls of the house, once echoing with silence, now hummed with whispered words, soft laughter, and the creak of bedsprings under the weight of rediscovered passion. Jacob touched her like a man starved, reverent yet hungry, and she clung to him as though he were her salvation. But peace never lasts long on the frontier. One morning, riders came. 3 men in dust-stained coats, guns heavy at their hips. Jacob knew their kind, land grabbers, the sort who sniffed out lonely ranchers like wolves. Their leader, a tall brute named McCready, tipped his hat at Evelyn before turning to Jacob. Word is, Harland, you're sitting on land the railroad wants. You got no kin, no legal wife. Easier if you sell out and clear off. Jacob's jaw tightened. Not sellin'. This land's mine. McCready's eyes slid to Evelyn. Pretty little thing you got there. Shame if she found herself widowed so soon. The threat hung heavy. Jacob's hand hovered near his holster, but he didn't draw. Not yet. McCready spat and rode off, promising to return. That night, Evelyn clung to him, fear sharp in her breath. They'll kill you, she whispered. Let him try, Jacob muttered. But deep down, he knew he couldn't fight 3 men alone. Not without risk, not without leaving her unprotected. For the first time in 15 years, Jacob Harland prayed. When McCready returned, Evelyn stood on the porch beside Jacob, eyes blazing. I am his wife, she declared, voice steady. You'll have to kill me too if you want this land. McCready sneered. Fine by me. The draw was quick, too quick for thought. Guns flashed, thunder cracked. Dust and smoke filled the air. When it cleared, McCready lay bleeding in the dirt, Jacob's revolver still smoking. The other 2 fled, their courage broken. Jacob staggered, breath ragged, staring at the dead man. 15 years of loneliness had carved him hollow, but in that moment, with Evelyn's hand gripping his, he realized something fierce. He was alive again. Alive, and willing to fight for it. That night, they buried McCready out back where the coyotes would find him. Evelyn leaned into Jacob's chest, whispering, we'll be all right now. We'll make a life. Jacob kissed the crown of her head, tasting salt and dust. You weren't meant to come here, he said. But maybe you were meant for me all the same. The ranch, once silent as a grave, breathed again. And for the first time in 15 years, Jacob Harland no longer felt alone.